What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Friday, so that means another indie spotlight, and today I'm excited to highlight 5 projects that I think have a lot of implications for the future of comics. But before I ramble too much longer, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a video. The first book I want to talk about is WARCORNS Back to Basics. WARCORNS is something, it's a spin-off that, of some characters that appeared in a Franklin and Ghost comic. And it's a whole really goofy, silly, fun comic line. And the WARCORNS, they had their own book last year, but really it was like them with Franklin and Ghost kind of appearing in a majority of the book. So it sounds like Back to Basics is going to tell, their story at basic training, because the book from last year, it seems like the last mission. Spoiler alert, they all meet their demise. But this Back to Basics, and from what I hear, it sounds like there's a couple of these lined up. So it sounds like Garrett Gunn is going to give us the origin story of the WARCORNS. If you're unfamiliar with WARCORNS, though, what you should know is this is basically a 80s style military team of anthropomorphic unicorns. So think like the Expendables. You got Schwarzenegger and Stallone and Terry Crews and whoever else. This is a team of 4 or 5 unicorns. They all have different roles. They have these really goofy personalities. They're very brightly colored. So you have like this rainbow of anthropomorphic unicorns with big muscles, big guns, and it's just like a lot of dumb fun. I had a blast with the issue that came out last year. I really liked them when they show up in Franklin and Ghost. And Franklin and Ghost is a animated show that's in production still, but it should be released soon if I remember correctly. So not only am I excited to check that out, but that also means that all of the Franklin and Ghost comic books and everything are probably going to skyrocket in value. So I can't complain too much about that. But Franklin and Ghost is a great series. I really like the WARCORNS spinoff, and I can't wait to see how this turns out. So check it out on Kickstarter. There's a link in the description of the video. And back that if it sounds interesting to you, because it really truly is a whole lot of fun. Drexler number 3. I've never read any of Drexler. This is my first experience with it, but I thought it was a really interesting concept, and there's a lot of relatability there. Basically, your main character was an outcast within the community he grew up with, or at least he felt like an outcast. So once he was old enough, he packed up and he left, and he's been gone, and his sister asked him to return for whatever reason. So whenever he comes back, things start to spiral from there. To me, it sounds like, basically he felt like an outcast whenever he came back as an adult. Maybe there was some of the same problems that he left. He decides to take them into his own hands. Vigilante justice, I guess. But what really caught my eye on that was the artwork. I think that story alone is kind of relatable. I grew up in a similar situation. I grew up in the middle of the country, in a very small town that had this close-knit community. But my parents, they moved there right before I was born. So I was kind of an outsider. I didn't have all the family names and the big connections, and my family didn't know everybody in town and stuff. So I always felt like an outsider. When I started the first day of kindergarten, everybody just met up with their friends, and I was left sitting there, So I can relate to that premise already. And then I started looking at the art, and it's got this great gritty, kinetic action to it. And then even more interesting than that is that Scout has already picked up this book. I believe there's supposed to be 4 or 5 books in this series. And once they're all completely released on Kickstarter, then they will be distributed through Scout. So there's already something to this book. Scout doesn't pick up nothing, They've been picking up a lot more and a lot more, especially this year. But the books that they're picking up for distribution are all books that already have an audience, And so if they're interested in Drexler, you probably should be too. Monster Matador number 2. I came across this on Kickstarter, but I had actually heard about it previously. I believe that the Bearded Comic Bro, I believe, interviewed the creator of this book. If I can find that video, I will put it up here in the video so that you can link over to that, because I don't remember everything that was talked about other than like how much fun and how crazy this book sounds. And so it's basically exactly what it sounds like, right? In the near future, I guess genetics or nuclear material or something, corporate waste runoff or whatever, whatever you want to believe. In the near future, there's like flies are giant, and so you get like this spin on kaiju, right? They live in Guatemala, I believe, and there's a whole bunch of like giant monsters and insects and stuff. And our main character here is a matador for these kaiju. So you get like these great kaiju battles, but instead of your traditional like two giant things fighting each other and destroying everything around them, instead what you get is a Matador style showdown where he's trying to lead the kaiju and I guess like kite them if you're into MMOs and stuff like that. It looks really interesting. It looks like the kaiju battles are a lot of fun. But I think the Matador element to it actually makes them a little bit longer and a little more interesting. So I was looking through this. I really liked it. Like I said, I saw an interview from Bearded Comic Bro, I believe. And I really like the creator on this. He seems like a great guy that has a lot of ideas. And this is a 3-part series. This is number 2. I'll be getting the catch-up tier that gives me number 1. And then, of course, I'll have my eyes peeled for when the 3rd one hits Kickstarter as well, because it sounds like it's a lot of fun and I really want to get that complete story, so opportunity beckons. Killtopia number 3. If the name doesn't give it away, this book looks like it's over the top, a ton of action, hyper violent, and very beautiful. I heard about this book because I follow Clark Bent on social media, and he started dropping his covers for Killtopia number 3, and I thought they looked absolutely gorgeous. The colors pop. It looks like a lot of fun, a lot of crazy perspective work, and so I was really excited about it. I jumped over to Kickstarter, checked it out, and it turns out there's 2 books before this, but essentially what you have is in the future in this place called Neo Tokyo, you have there's like these mechs that occupy certain sectors. I don't know exactly what the mechs themselves do, but there are basically like bounty hunter droids or something that are taking out these mechs, and then you also have salvagers that come in and take the parts, and that's how they make their living. So the main character here is basically a newbie salvager, and whenever he goes out to start collecting off these mechs, he runs into the only known sentient mech. And so that's kind of who the story is following, is this main character and this sentient mech that he found. The main character, he does have a sister at home that he's trying to take care of. I believe she has some kind of sickness. So he's trying to make money to get her treatment. And amongst all of that, you also have these bounty hunters. You have like a futuristic Yakuza. You have other mechs. And so there's a lot of things coming after them for, whatever their mission is here exactly. But it looks like a lot of fun. All the panels I've seen, it looks like, just like murder. There's lots of blood, lots of action. There's definitely like some 80s and 90s anime elements to this. There is like some animation stuff to this. So it's a really cool looking book. I love the way the colors pop. If nothing else, I'm going to pick it up to get the cover by Clark Bent because I love his artwork. I think he did an outstanding job on Frank at Home on the Farm. And I can't wait to see what he does regardless of the amount of involvement he has for Killtopia, because this cover alone is enough to sell me. The Wild Cosmos number 3. This is an exciting book to me because I've been following Curtis Clow for quite a while now. when I first got into Kickstarters and indie publishing and self-publishing and crowd publishing and all of these kinds of things, Curtis Clow was one of the first creators I came across. I really liked his first book, The Wild Cosmos, and then he's went on to do two other series, and I guess technically they're all kind of ongoing, and they're unrelated to each other. But that's why it's been quite a while. But Wild Cosmos 1 and 2 were very good. I'm excited to see where the third one goes. The Wild Cosmos number 3. This is a book, it's written by Curtis Clow. He has an artist and everything else. But essentially, this is the first creator I really started following from whenever I got into like Kickstarter and self-publishing and everything. I really like what he does. I think if you look at, say, the Wild Cosmos 1 and all of the work he's done in other series and everything, you can see a very clear progression as a creator. And that's what I really like about him, is because he has 3 different series that live very much in 3 completely different genres. But he's able to write so well across all of those genres. And that to me is impressive, because I think a lot of people underestimate what's really going on with Kickstarter comics. I don't know a lot about Curtis Clow other than I do know that last year he was able to leave like his full-time job and go into the creative arts full-time. And so that's really exciting to me, because that means that his work is getting recognized enough, and he's got enough support that he can afford to go in that route. And that, to me, that means he's making steps, right? He's making progress towards something that I think almost everybody would be interested in, working in comics. Who doesn't want to? The Wild Cosmos is, it's a space story. It's about this team of, I guess they're basically like grifters or heisters. They steal cargo off of spaceships. And whenever the Wild Cosmos starts, one of the team members is basically kidnapped and held ransom in exchange for somebody important, like a princess. And so this team of, heisters, they basically have to commit a heist of stealing this princess and turning her in for the ransom to get their crew member back. So the series has been a lot of fun so far. I'm really excited that we're on number 3 now, because I do feel like this has been the slowest release of his 3 series, but it doesn't mean that the quality is lacking. This book is going to be every bit as exciting as the first 2 were, or anything else that Curtis has put out. So I'm really excited to grab that one. Jump over to Kickstarter, check it out. I believe there's plenty of like catch-up tiers and stuff in there, so you can get any of Curtis's books, and I suggest all of them. So just go over there, back the project, and get all the books. Why not? The title of this video is Idols and Icons. And the reason I chose that name is because I think that the average person probably views Kickstarter comics as, amateur, unprofessional, or whatever else. And so what I tried to highlight in this video were Kickstarter comics that have been successful, that have been doing more than one issue, or more importantly to me, creators that are outputting great work on a regular basis on Kickstarter, because I think that's where the system is really underrated. I think the pressures of 2020 have really changed the game in a lot of ways, and I think the big catalyst for that was the shutdown of Diamond. Because there was a point where, whether you were self-publishing or you were trying to get in with a publisher, say Source Point Press, there was almost this sense of like, Diamond was the great legitimizer, right? If you could get a Diamond code, if you could get your book in previews, it was a real comic book. That legitimized you as a creator. And then 2020 rolled around, and with Diamond shutting down, it effectively halted the entire industry, right? Even if you were a comic publisher, you couldn't distribute your books because you had a contract, you had to go through Diamond. And so what happened at that point is a lot of people took their projects with the uncertainty of knowing when Diamond would open and start distributing books again. A lot of people took their projects and went elsewhere, Some of them decided to do self-publishing and put the book out on their own. Some of them turn to crowdfunding like Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And I think this is a pretty solid model for what we'll see in the future. I wouldn't be surprised if there's like some very small distributors that pop up from this, and we start seeing like Kickstarter comic distribution services or something, you know. But at the end of the day, I think the lesson here is that Diamond is no longer in control, and you know, self-publishing and USPS and FedEx and UPS and all of them have kind of created this avenue where it's cheap enough to ship things, and people are more willing than ever to pay shipping charges to get something, and so it's actually kind of democratized comic book distribution, and I think that's a level of competition that Diamond is probably underestimating all in all, you know. But what this has also shown me is that there's a lot of creators on Kickstarter and Indiegogo and all of these platforms that are, you know, they are idols and icons. They are the future of comics. And so I think probably the biggest one, the standout for me is, you know, the last book I talked about, Wild Cosmos #3, is Curtis Clow. Now, this guy has put out several comic books, I think like 8 books in the last year, all through Kickstarter. He's doing amazing things. I think it's really great that you can see his first book and his latest book, and you can kind of see that growth and change. But what really interests me about that is that he has 3 different book series, and they're 3 completely different genres, and yet he's able to write all of those. And that reminds me of something that's like very key to becoming, like, I guess, a modern superstar in comics, especially if there's any intent to rise into the big 2. And that's that Donny Cates role. Jason Aaron, Scott Snyder, these people that have this really strong ability to put together an event and tell a story that kind of like connects to everything. If there's anybody I could see doing that in the future, it's Curtis Clow. This guy can write great stories, he can write great characters, but he's also, you know, very fluid and knows how to write like different genres. And being able to go from one character to another, go from one genre to another, and create all these stories and these plot threads, I think is something that he's very good at. And I think that is the necessary skill set to move into something like, you know, a universe architect. So I see big things on the horizon for him. You know, Killtopia, it's on #3. It's successfully funded 2 books and created a whole like series on Kickstarter. Monster Matador is a 3-issue series. Drexler's supposed to be 4 or 5 issues, but it's already been picked up for by Scout Comics for distribution. So that alone is a recognition of a creator that, you know, that's that legitimization that I was just talking about with Diamond, you know, that we used to look for through Diamond. And now I think we're getting a lot of that through Scout, because Scout is picking up these Kickstarters and, you know, taking on the distribution role of it. And so I think that's a big deal. I think that's really important, because it shows us that there are people at our level that are looking to be more, or that are capable of being more, and they're making those moves. And it's making this avenue not only enticing to new creators, but it's legitimizing this avenue and saying, like, yeah, you can start out making your own comics and releasing them through Kickstarter, and you can build a career out of that. And that's what I think is truly awesome. And that's why I think it's great that there's people like Donny Cates and, you know, Scott Snyder out there. You know, they're these rock star creators, they're household names, people know who they are. But I think they all started somewhere. And so that's how I kind of see Kickstarter and, you know, somebody like Curtis Clow with the Wild Cosmos. Like, these are the future of comics, and I'm more than excited to celebrate and invest in their future. So that's pretty much the video today. I think it was a little bit quicker. We'll see after I do all the editing. But those were the things on my mind. I found 5 Kickstarter projects that I thought really support my theory that these are the future of comics, and that this is a now very legitimate avenue for creation. I did an interview recently, earlier this week, where I talked to a couple of creators that have a Kickstarter project going on. And so that interview will be out later, but in there we also talk a lot about like how things have changed in 2020 with self-publishing and Kickstarter, and how the public perception of those avenues has changed. So I'm really excited to get that out and share it with everybody. Thank you so much for watching this video, and until next time, keep flipping pages.